and welcome to episode 4 of Outtakes. If you've missed our previous outtakes, my colleague here, Jeff, and we built a course for English language programs. And both Jeff and I have been specialists and done a lot of work with English language programs. One of my favorite projects that I did with English language programs was actually, I was a fellow in South Africa, English language fellows. So you go in country, and I got to work with an elementary school, and I just shared culture where we did finger weaving, and I talked about the United States with the elementary kids, and we just had a really great time. And one of the most surprising things is one of the kids decided that she wanted to make a finger weaving for every state in the US because there's 9 provinces in South Africa, and her eyes just got big when she found out there are 50 states in the US. She's like, maybe I won't.
Yeah, that's a long way to go. 50. Yeah, and I'm Jeff Kuhn. So I think my first specialist visit was in 2013, and it was in Venezuela, and it was probably one of my favorites because I had worked on a project for the office to make a video game. So we made this game called Trace Effects, and it was the first time I kind of got to like use it out in the field, and just meeting the members of Venezuela TESOL and just the fun I had working with them on this brand new thing. It's just always been like seared into my memory. Is like it was the perfect specialist visit. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And it's exciting that you got to use Trace FX for that. I remember when it came out. It was such an exciting time. But so the course we built is all about technology, including AI, and how we can integrate it in our classrooms. And then this episode, we're going to talk about sort of use cases of technologies. So our first question is, how often do you use GenAI and what for? Such an
And
important
this,
question.
yeah, and it didn't quite make it into the course, right? Because we just didn't have that kind of time to talk a little bit about how we use it. But I would say for me, I'm using it more and more to just like cut time. Something that I've been doing for myself or for my students is especially allowing AI for images and presentations because you just scour the internet looking for an image or something to put in uh, your PowerPoint or what have you, and then citing it correctly has always been a challenge for the students, things like that. So a lot of times now I'm just like, hey, if you need an image to explain something or to show, try AI. I've also been using a piece of software on my computer called Chat with RTX, where I can run AI on my graphics card on my home computer and using it as a research assistant. It's something where I'll just say like, when did I talk about X? And it'll go through my materials and find that and bring it out. So again, helping me develop materials a lot quicker and just trying to find out where I spend that time. Like, you get on the internet and it's like it takes longer to make a PowerPoint than it does to explain what you're trying to use it for. And then the issue there becomes like it becomes more important than what you're trying to say. So I'm really trying to like shift that balance back to like what I'm trying to say is what I should be focused on. Communicating it more effectively is what I should be focused on, not this thing up on the screen. Um, that's me.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say that I so I use AI every day to like plan sessions that I have for teachers, and
Mhm.
that's different than like my personal use. So I think I said in a previous episode that, I play with a lot of AI technologies because I need to for my work. And we really saw that in the course, we put in the course sort of use cases of things
Right.
that teachers, in the research as well as in playing around. And there are a couple of examples for how I have used AI in the course, but I really, in my own teaching, I maybe will have one AI activity with my students that I try to pull towards the beginning to help my students really understand, and we can talk about the policies and things like that. And then I don't necessarily use AI a lot in the rest of the course with
Mm.
my students. Um, like I might mention it, we might talk about it, But I really want my students to develop other kinds of skills too, and to use other kinds of technologies. And so I want to have a balance of technologies in my classroom. And I feel like sometimes AI can overtake that balance if you start to focus on it so much and buy into the hype that it's really important. And I don't want to forget that within my classes. So I really think carefully. In my own use, I use AI for saving time. If I think AI is going to help me save time in doing a particular task, I'm going to put it in there. So I use it a lot when I am writing or doing an activity and I hit a roadblock and I can't push forward. I'll use it to help me walk through the roadblock so that I can then push forward. So in my writing, I'm like, I've hit a roadblock. I don't really know where I want to go with this. I'll pull it up and say, hey, I'm working on this. I'm not really sure where to go next. Or when I'm giving feedback to my students and I I'm not really sure what to say. I don't put my students' information in there. I just say, I'm trying to figure out what to say to my students. This is what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then it gives me some ideas and it helps me to sort of think through what's happening, especially when I'm reviewing dissertations, because they're much more complex documents. And sometimes I'm not as familiar with the research design, and I don't really know how to ask appropriate questions to get the students to where I want them to be.
Right, right.
And so it helps me to formulate those questions and as an assistant. And then I also use it for helping me to differentiate materials
Hmm.
because I often have students who are at different levels in the same class, but I want them to work with the same topic, the same material. So I'll say, can you simplify this language for me? Can you make it more complex? Whatever it is that I need. That way we can all work with the same topic and materials.
And I think it's, you're hitting on that important point, and I think both of us think about this with AI. It's I don't want my student necessarily interacting with AI, but I want AI to support us in interacting together. It's like, okay, I need differentiated materials, so I'm going to have it do that so my students and I can work together, and it brings a little bit of like, balance to my class. I know that student's at a level that is slightly different than this student. Can I tweak that material just so? And it would take me a long time to do that. But if I can ask AI to do it and kind of crank that out a little bit quicker, that gives me more time to think about what I'm teaching in my class. And I suppose that's the issue is I want AI, or really what I want any technology to do, is give me more time to think about how I'm teaching my class versus what to teach, and I suppose that's really where I find all my technology. It's like, is this going to help me think less about what I need to do and think more about how I'm going to do it? Then it's a technology I'm going to use.
Yeah, yeah, I think this goes really good into our second question is, do you think Gen AI is living up to the promises made by the companies who created them? And I don't think it is. I think they make a lot of claims about what it can do that don't actually like produce the kind of results that I need. Um, I don't know. How do you feel?
I, uh, I find myself saying this phrase quite a bit. I don't want to talk about AI. I want to talk about capitalism. I think I'll keep it brief here. I think a lot of times these companies are making these big promises because they want to drive share value, and it's like I think from a reality perspective, it's not living up to it because it's not supposed to. It can't. It's supposed to all these wonderful things. Technology is supposed to free us up. We're supposed to have freedom, less work, more time to ourselves. Technology's only giving us more work. Now we're reachable anywhere. And it's great to see countries responding to that. It's like, hey, after 5 p.m., emails are shut off, or you can't do this, can't do that. And I think AI is in a similar boat. So I think the companies have a different. They're making these promises for a different reason than what we see those promises to be for. And I think you said this well, and I don't want to steal your idea, and I don't know if you want to talk about it now, but you talked about how it really only does one thing. accepts input and creates output. You can talk about that because it was your idea and it was great. But that's all it does.
Yeah, yeah. It's something that I really have thought a lot about as I've been doing a lot more workshops on AI. Like, I get really bored with it
Mm,
because how often can I show teachers, then you put this input and then output comes out and then we evaluate the output. And right. And so trying to create workshops that are more interesting when you're using GenAI is becoming a real challenge for
I
me.
think for me, what I really see about AI that I like is, I always look at like I've talked about this before of is this piece of technology a tool where my students interact with that and there's an expectation they learn or something like that, or is it a space that they can use for problem solving? And so, game-based learning, I look at this a lot of just like I'm going to put my students in a game because it's full of problems and I want them to solve those problems. And now they have something to talk about with each other. Now they have a reason to use the language because they went through an experience. Same thing with AI. I often look at this like, Papere talks about in the book Mindstorms. It's an object to think with. If I can let my students be creative and make stuff with AI, I'm not necessarily concerned about them interacting with the AI, and I don't want the language learning to happen there. I want them to, make a song or make a comic book or make a this, and then show that to the class and have something to show. For me, that has a lot of value. But again, it comes back to input something, get an output, tweak it, refine it, and it's kind of a limited process.
Yeah, yeah. But that doesn't mean that I don't think that it has value. I just think that we need to recognize the value that it does have
Right.
and speak appropriately about it.
Let's temper our expectations compared to what
Mhm.
we're being sold.
Yeah, yeah. And for each teacher, that's going to be different, right? And that's where we need to find for ourselves, what are the use cases that really are going to work for us, and how are we going to incorporate this into our teaching based on our context that we're working in, the students that we have, the values of the course, the philosophy, the all of those things, and not do it based on what a company says,
Right.
but
And
based
there's a
on
great
what we.
example during the Olympics where Google released that commercial of a little girl writing a letter to her favorite Olympian and basically the dad had Google Gemini do it. And the backlash was swift and severe, where everyone's like, that is the most callous, empty way of like you would never do that with your kid. And I think that's a great example of just like there are things where you want authenticity. I'm not going to use AI, nor I'm going to have my students do it. If I want them writing a letter to local, city hall because we want something to happen in our small town, no AI. But if I want them to, make something that's a little more superfluous, a little less meaningful, let's do it.
Yeah,
Crank out a
yeah.
silly song, show it in class, talk about it, bam, done.
That sounds like a great use case. Let's talk about the fun song that it made. On that note, let's go ahead and finish up this episode. It was so great talking with you once again, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
See ya.